Hello and welcome back to Offsides, BUTV10's only professional sports talk show. I'm Allison DeWitt.
And I'm Benson Lin. To kick things off, Serafin will host our first shot clock of the semester with analysts James McIntyre and Mason Jablonsky to preview March Madness.
Next, Podalsky and Raf Bruni will give an NFL free agency recap.
Then George Atencio will share his thoughts on the Champions League.
All this and more, Offsides starts right now.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Offsides March Madness Shot Clock. I'm Serafin, joined by James McIntyre and Mason Jablonsky, who are ready to put their NCAA takes to the test. There will be 5 rounds and you will have 25 seconds per question. A point will be awarded to whoever presents the better argument, and at the end of 5 rounds, the panelist with the most points gets the win and Offsides bragging rights. All right, let's get started. The tournament is all about madness, with plenty of upsets expected early on. What are some teams outside the higher seeds that could bust some brackets? Let's start with James.
After Memphis upset Houston in the AAC Championship, it's hard for me not to believe in this team to make a deep run in this year's tournament. Talent-wise, Kendrick Davis stands out as a point guard and leader despite only transferring into the program this year. He averages 22 points. Behind him, DeAndre Williams is an awesome secondary player, making his presence known on defense. They won't win a championship, but I expect the team to appear in the Sweet 16.
For my dark horse pick, I'm going with the Creighton Blue Jays. They're the 6th seed in the South, and their journey to a chip wouldn't be an easy one. However, Creighton is a streaky team that can catch fire from the floor, and when they do, they can be hard to beat. They might give the Crimson Tide a scare, but I think Creighton has a better chance of going deep given all their tournament experience.
I'm going to go with Mason on this one. I really like this Creighton team and all their experience. Moving to question number 2, what highly ranked team is most likely to underperform? Mason, you can start us off this time.
Well, my pick to underperform this year is the Baylor Bears. The Bears enter the national tournament as the 3 seed in the South, and there's no doubting what this team can do on the offensive end. That being said, their defense has been heinous. No team that has won a national title was ranked outside of the top 30 in defensive efficiency. The Bears entered the Big 12 tournament ranked 90th. At the end of the day, defense wins championships, and I don't think this Baylor team has the heart and determination on D to carry them to a title.
UCLA's west corner of the tournament, in my opinion, is the hardest, including teams like UConn, Gonzaga, Kansas, and TCU. For this reason, UCLA already had a very hard path onward to the final rounds. All year, defense has been the name of the game for UCLA, but after losing Jalen Clark, who won the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, that defense must get worse.
I'm going to go with James on this one. For UCLA, losing Clark will be very hard to overcome for a team that was already very light in the front court. All right, guys, it's all tied up. Moving to the third question, James, which first seed is most likely to lose first?
I think the number 1 seed most likely to lose early is Purdue. Zach Edey is truly phenomenal and guided the team through the Big Ten this season. However, I think that if he has an off game or faces tough defense, the Boilermakers could be going home. Penn State exposed the inexperience of their guards, who crumbled underneath full court press and nearly lost the title match. Their opponent, FDU just made their way into the tournament and are going to have to play like they have nothing to lose.
Well, this year, my number 1 pick most likely to lose is Kansas. The Jayhawks are matching up with Howard in the first round, and it would be a long shot for the Bison to pull off this upset. But the thing I love about basketball is that any team can win on any night. In this case, the difference maker could be 3-point shooting. Kansas only shot 31% from 3 in their last 9 regular season games. If the Bison open this game clicking from range, the reigning tournament champions could be in trouble.
Mason must have read my notes before this because I always love teams in March that can spray from downtown. The point goes to Jablonsky. It's hard to repeat as champs, and being in the West region makes it even harder for the Jayhawks. Speaking of champs, question 4 gets right to the point. Who do you guys see cutting down the nets in Houston this year?
For the championship title, the hosts are taking it home. I'm going all in on the Houston Cougars. Houston has been a juggernaut on the defensive end this season, allowing just 56.5 points per game. Their defense is powered by freshman Jarris Walker, whose 6'8", 240 frame is a nightmare for opponents. I expect to see these Cougars competing in the Final Four in their hometown and clinching that title.
Picking a championship for March Madness is no easy task, but I think when Alabama has the best player in the country, they have to be my pick for who will be cutting down the net this year. When you pair an unstoppable offense led by Brandon Miller, that ranks 6th in the nation, with a tough defensive culture that ranked 3rd in defensive efficiency, you get the buzzsaw that is the Crimson Tide. Expect to see Alabama dominate competition early and finish strong as champions.
Alabama might be the most well-rounded team in the country, which means James gets the point. And we're all square too going into the final question. James, who is your MVP in this March Madness?
The SEC Freshman and Player of the Year, Alabama's Brandon Miller, can do it all at the collegiate level. His scoring talent is already insanely high despite his age, garnering interest from NBA teams as a top 3 pick. He shoots 43% from beyond the arc while putting up 19 points. He also has a great supporting cast, likely bolstering what should already be a dominant stint in this year's tournament.
My player to watch is Purdue's Zach Edey. Edey is simply the most dominant force in college basketball. He's 7'4", nearly 300 pounds, and has the hands, footwork, and soft touch to get the job done as soon as he catches the ball in the post. Edey is putting up 22 points and nearly 13 boards a night, and with the spacing he gets from the shooters around him, Edey is free to feast in the paint. I expect him to rise to the occasion if he wants to lead his first-seeded Purdue squad to the promised land.
One is extremely tough. Edey is unstoppable at the college level, but Miller looks to be the better long-term NBA prospect. This still is the NCAA though, so I'm going to go with Edey and give Mason the win. He's the most valuable player in college hoops, with Purdue relying on him so much every night. Well, thank you guys for your insight on college hoops. I can't wait to see how wrong we all are. But that's going to do it for our March Madness Shot Clock. Coming up next, Alexa and Raf discuss NFL free agency.
The NFL offseason is underway for the 2023 season. Almost 2 months after the Super Bowl, many teams have altered their roster to build their franchise, and so far it's been a whirlwind of events.
All eyes are right now on Green Bay quarterback Aaron Rodgers. On March 15th, Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show and stated how he wants to play for the Jets in the 2023 season. The Jets have even signed Rodgers' former wide receiver Allen Lazard to a 4-year, $44 million deal. But it is important to remember that the Packers have not agreed to any trade yet. In fact, the Packers have until September to decide if they want to go through with the trade or not. This is a very interesting saga that will have Packers and Jets fans both on the edge of their seats.
Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins had a great season after the addition of Tyreek Hill to their offense, and they seem to be getting even better. They traded a 2023 third-round pick and tight end Hunter Long for All-Pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey from the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams had a 5-12 record last season after winning Super Bowl 56. Ramsey's addition to the team will be key for the growing talent on the Dolphins roster, which includes star defensive players Xavier Howard and Jalen Phillips. If Tua can stay healthy for the upcoming season, the Dolphins have a good chance at yet another playoff run.
Another big signing is Juju Smith-Schuster, who was signed by the Patriots on a 3-year, $25.5 million deal. Smith-Schuster was picked up in free agency after having finished his 1-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think one of the Patriots' biggest problems during this post-Brady era was the lack of offensive weapons around Mac Jones. The addition of Smith-Schuster is even more important once you realize that the Patriots' best wide receiver, Jacoby Myers, signed with the Raiders on a 3-year, $33 million deal. I think Juju is the best wide receiver that the Patriots have had in a while, and I can't wait to see how he connects with Mac Jones.
Speaking of the Patriots, the Dallas Cowboys are acquiring cornerback Stephon Gilmore from the Colts for a 5th-round pick in the upcoming draft. Despite coming off on a slow season, Gilmore won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 with the New England Patriots before injuring his knee during the 2020 season. After a rough year with the Panthers, Gilmore hit a career high for solo and total tackles with the Colts. It'll be interesting to see how he performs with Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons this upcoming season. I see this move as a win for the Cowboys. It could definitely even get them to the NFC Championship game.
There have been some big quarterback moves this offseason. After Derek Carr was released by Las Vegas Raiders in February, Carr was signed by the New Orleans Saints on a 4-year, $550 million deal. To fill the void left by Carr, the Raiders signed former 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo to a 3-year, $72.75 million contract. I feel like Carr is the one who's going to have more success with his new team. I always felt like Carr was a very talented quarterback who was always let down by the dysfunctionality of the Raiders organization. Meanwhile, I always felt like Garoppolo was a good but not great quarterback who was bolstered by the very talented 49ers team around him. Other big news this offseason was the New York Giants re-signing Daniel Jones to a 4-year, $160 million deal. After Jones had 3 very mediocre seasons, he finally had a very good 4th season under the tutelage of new head coach Brian Daboll. While I was impressed by Jones last season and him leading the Giants all the way to the NFC divisional round, I still think $160 million is too much for a quarterback who has only had 1 good year under his belt. With this amount of money given to him, Danny Dimes really has to shine in New York, or else a lot of Giants fans are going to be very mad.
And one of the biggest uncertainties left in this free agency is the outcome for the Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins only played for half of the season in 2022 due to violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. But his performance didn't suffer. He has flexibility on the last 2 years of his contract, which means teams have even more incentive to pick him up. There are a few places he could end up, but the Cowboys and the Patriots are the most interested. Hopkins seems to be able to fit the slot for a WR1 on a team that has had more success than the Cardinals. So regardless of where he ends up, Hopkins will have better luck on another team.
With free agency still underway, we can only wait and see how each move will impact the league.
It's been a wild ride so far in this year's UEFA Champions League. We've seen some giants fall, young talents shine, and lots of incredible play from Europe's finest. As the first round of the knockouts is finished, 8 teams remain. Today, I'll be recapping the tournament so far and giving some predictions for who will be this year's champ. To start off with the group stage, we saw pretty much every group finish as predicted, but there were a few upsets, like Club Brugge, who were able to make it into the knockouts over Leverkusen and Atletico Madrid. Benfica was also able to top their entire group, winning 4 out of 6 of their matches to place ahead of both PSG and Juventus. Now, for the first round of the knockouts. AC Milan eliminated Tottenham Hotspur with 1 goal across 2 games, winning their first knockout since 2013. Benfica hammered Club Brugge, scoring 7 goals in 2 games, winning 7-1 on aggregate. Chelsea was able to fight off Borussia Dortmund after losing to the German side in their first match 1-0. Goals from Raheem Sterling and Kai Havertz led Chelsea to win in the second leg. PSG were stunned by German champion Bayern Munich, who scored 3 goals to PSG's 0 throughout their 2 legs. Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar created chances but could not finish and were second best to the Bavarians, whose defense and counterattack shined. Inter Milan was able to advance after beating FC Porto 1-0 on aggregate, and Manchester City were able to overcome their shaky start against RB Leipzig, who they drew in the first leg. But any uncertainty about the Sky Blues was smashed to the tune of 5 Erling Haaland goals in the second leg. City won 7-1 on aggregate, and Haaland continues to prove he is the best striker in the world with 39 goals in all competitions so far this season. Napoli, who is currently on top of the Serie A, cruised past Europa League champions Eintracht Frankfurt, winning 5-0 on aggregate, and Liverpool versus Real Madrid proved to be an electrifying fixture, with Madrid coming back from a 2-0 deficit in the first leg by scoring 5 unanswered goals. Los Blancos carried their momentum into the second leg and secured advancement with a 1-0 win over the Reds. That's all for the first round of the knockouts, and now we're left with AC Milan, Inter Milan, Chelsea, Manchester City, Real Madrid, Benfica, Bayern Munich, and Napoli. City, Madrid, and Bayern are all favorites to win the tournament, as well as Napoli, who are a little bit inexperienced in the Champions League, but are a major threat nonetheless. Benfica is underestimated, but super fast. And as for the Milan teams, both boast pretty great defenses, but will have to rely on some lucky draws to make it past the quarterfinals. And Chelsea needs to maintain their momentum after beating Borussia Dortmund, which has been a recent struggle for them in the Premier League. The quarterfinal draw pits Manchester City against Bayern Munich, Chelsea against Real Madrid, AC Milan versus Napoli, and Inter Milan against Benfica. I predict that Man City, Real Madrid, Napoli, and Inter will advance. City should be able to beat Bayern with their attacking prowess and ability to maintain possession. Real Madrid will take advantage of Chelsea's inconsistency. Napoli's young talent and well-rounded team will break AC Milan's defense, and Inter will be able to use their physicality and cohesion to beat Benfica. My early prediction for who will take the entire tournament is Manchester City. But you can't count out Bayern, who are always dangerous in the Champions League. Barca fans know a lot about that. Anyways, quarterfinal games begin on April 11th. Make sure you tune in to see who will be this year's European champion.
Thanks, George. That's all we have for this episode of Offsides. If you're interested in joining our team, please email us at offsides@butv10.com.
And be sure to like us on Facebook and follow our Instagram and Twitter at Offsides10.
From all of our cast and crew, thank you for tuning in and have a great night.